All right, this is a Reflective Practitioner video journal number 3, master scheduling. Now that I've learned about master scheduling, I can definitely see the obvious drawbacks and ethical dilemmas when developing a schedule, especially if you are a small school or your own LEA, which most charter schools like mine are. When you have limited resources and limited personnel, if you face facility challenges like my school does, then those constraints can a lot of times dictate the class offerings that you provide. When you don't have the right number of teachers, then what my school does is you end up having to have teachers teach at the middle school and high school level, which really limits the class offerings that you can have. With any school that's not a district school, and actually even with district schools, I guess these days, that struggle with enrollment, your enrollment is your livelihood through ADA. So if you don't have adequate enrollment to support and fund the necessary teachers with the necessary subject matter competency and credentialing, then you are limited in what classes you can offer. My school had this problem for a very long time. We couldn't offer higher level courses, and if we did, it was very limited. Just one offering usually per grade group. Beyond that, tracking of kids has always been a problem. Creating higher track, grade groups or cohorts that end up leaving the rest of the kids behind or not having the same offerings for honors or higher level courses that have that rigor that's going to challenge them. A lot of times the barriers to access typically are grades. Sometimes behavior can be used as a barrier to access, which I don't think is fair. Behaviors and academics, of course, they're so closely correlated, but they're not causal like most people think they are. So I think that every school has to be mindful and intentional about trying to be as equitable as possible by eliminating as many of those barriers to access as possible. One of the things that my school has done that I found to be effective and equitable is to use various metrics when determining if a student qualifies for an honors course or an AP course, not just using one standard of qualification, whether it be test scores or grades. We've really opened it up to be more equitable and fair by allowing various forms of qualifications up to and including standardized tests, obviously. We do something called measures of academic progress, which is a school-wide academic assessment. So we use those MAP results. We have benchmarks for every, not for every class, but benchmarks for our honors track that we use as kind of a diagnostic. And then we also allow grades and anecdotal evidence through teacher referral. So we really take a holistic approach as opposed to only using grades or test scores to really get a sense of, maybe the student hasn't gotten the A+ in math, but they've demonstrated, whether through a benchmark or they've demonstrated capability and aptitude in other ways. And I think through a wide array of qualification standards, you open up the process and you increase the access to more students that would traditionally be closed off. I think any school can do that. Our school started allowing students to take AP courses even if they haven't qualified through their grades or passing AP tests in the past. We're still not at the point where that has really yielded the desired results. A lot of the kids still fail that AP course, and that's something we're struggling with. How do we make it equitable but also effective? Because at the end of the day, you want passing grades. You want kids to be able to get credit for their AP courses. And of course, AP course pass and failure rate also affects our school dashboard. So sitting down with my dean of academics and seeing just how much goes into master scheduling, taking into account not just resources and personnel, but also student needs, facility, budget, everything. I just didn't realize how involved the process it was, and how much input and feedback and information he needed from other staff members, administrators, and departments, just to be able to get an overall picture of how to mold it into the school's needs and vision.